How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video from both myself and Simba. I hope you had a lovely New Year and Christmas break. I know I did. Spent the longest time between YouTube videos on this channel in like literally over 2 years. Taking a week's break is literally the longest break I've ever had, so crazy. Recently been doing videos on some affordable dream cars that you can buy from brands like Porsche, from BMW, from Jaguar, Mercedes, etc. So I thought it's only right to do the same video but for Audi, one of my favourite brands personally. So if you want to see more videos like this, do let me know in the comments down below which other brands you'd like me to do. Don't forget that I'm in the UK, so prices in other countries may differ, and that whenever you buy any second-hand car, maintenance, repairs, insurance, road tax, all that stuff is important to remember. If you enjoy this kind of content, please hit the like button. Let's try and get to 2,000 likes on this video. I'd really appreciate it. And subscribe as well if you're new, as we're trying to hit the 100k mark as soon as possible. But without further ado, let's get into the video. The Audi RS2 is an absolutely stunning classic already, an Audi Porsche collab estate car that has already hit insane prices. However, before the RS2 came along, the S2 was available with its 2.2 litre turbocharged inline 5, which makes 230 brake horsepower and gets to 60 in 5.9 seconds. Think of the Audi S5 and take it back to the first half of the 1990s and this is what you get. It came as both a coupe and estate, though the latter is generally more expensive nowadays, as it's effectively the poor man's RS2. Don't let that put you off though, this car was the first ever Audi S car, which is pretty historic considering the continued success of both S and RS Audi models today. It also followed on from beloved cars like the Audi Quattro and Sport Quattro, which are ridiculous money today based on their rallying pedigree, and though the S2 isn't as well known for it, it was raced on both track and rally stages. These are quite hard to come by, but I found a couple of coupes starting at around £10,000 and some Avants available at the £15,000 mark with pretty high miles on the clock. As is already considered a classic by many, the many potential areas that can leak fluids are well known, as well as the common problems. The key point owners note, however, is that these cost a lot to maintain and parts are expensive, so be aware when buying. I've said the first gen is a top contender for future classic status in previous videos, but the one that stands out above the rest for me is the Quattro Sport, sometimes named the Sport Quattro, which has that classic 1.8 litre turbocharged inline 4 but tuned to make 236 brake horsepower rather than the standard 221, which gets to 60 in 5.7 seconds. It was released in 2005 only in coupe spec and is a limited edition with only 800 right-hand drive models ever made and 365 left-hand drive ones. In Europe it's known as the Club Sport and was built by Quattro specifically, who are now known as Audi Sport, the same business responsible for the Audi R8. As I mentioned, it gained power, but it also dropped 75 kilograms in weight while gaining a two-tone colorway with the black roof and some specialised alloys, plus the 3.2 VR6 body kit, as well as the loss of the rear seat and the introduction of some Recaro buckets. Despite being quite rare, they start at only £7,000, the cheapest of any car on this list, and the most you'll spend to get one is still less than £15,000. The benefit of getting a 1.8T is that it's super easy to get parts, and the key problems like oil leaks, alternator failure and the likes are all well documented. The Audi 50 is another beautiful classic car, which is the Audi equivalent of the original VW Polo. Unfortunately, they're pretty difficult to get a hold of here in the UK, but its successor isn't. The Audi S1 was the smallest Audi S car available on release in 2014 and was only available for 4 years. It shares its engine with the Golf GTI, a 2 litre turbocharged inline 4 that makes 227 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds. Not bad for a hot super mini. Now yes, it isn't the hallowed A1 Quattro, but they are so difficult to find, and the cheapest I could see one selling for in recent times was over the 30k mark. The S1 instead offers a lower barrier to entry, but you still benefit from an all-wheel drive hot hatch that came as both a 3 and 5 door depending on preference. It's absolutely a class leader in the super mini category and is almost a bit out of place compared to its competitors with just how much faster it is, but then it was also much more expensive when new. These start at around £12,000 with high mileage, and the most you'll spend is around £25,000 to get a very low mileage example. These have been pretty solid on reliability so far, but look out for rattling from the engine bay during cold starts, and some owners have noted failures with electricals, particularly sensors. In 7th we have a car that has already gained a pretty sizable cult following, the Audi S8 D3, or the second generation S8. The first gen is already sitting at around the 25k mark, but with this second gen you get the 5.2 litre V10, which produces 443 brake horsepower and takes itself to 60 in 4.9 4.9 seconds. This is a sports version of a luxury executive saloon, which makes it a bit of a sleeper in my books, with that almost but not exactly the same engine as the Lamborghini Gallardo, tuned specifically to match its luxury cruising credentials. It's got a nice interior too, sporty but refined, and it has some proper features on it as well, like the optional brake setup with 12 piston Brembo calipers with radially vented floating carbon discs. I'd almost call that overkill for this car. The minimum I could find these listed for is around £10,000, and most examples with lower mileage sit at around the 20k mark. Owners note carbon build-up is a key issue on these, and timing chain tensioners are known to fail too, which is an expensive fix. Fair warning, in both 6th and 5th on this list we have RS4s, the first of which is the B5 or first generation RS4, which is a 2.7 litre twin turbocharged V6 which makes 380 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. This is the car that followed the RS2, and though in S-spec it came as a saloon as well, in RS Audi committed exclusively to the Avant and built just over 6,000 total cars. That engine was actually built by Cosworth here in the UK, and if you know anything about them, you'll know they like to make cars go fast. The exterior was also different to the S4, being wider and more aggressive, which served the purpose of giving the car wider track for better handling and road holding, and the added aero actually having a positive effect too. £17,000 is around the lowest that I could find these listed for, and for £30,000 you'll be looking at a pretty high mileage example still, which is a clear indicator of the potential this car has in the long term. Owners seem to suggest that many cars in the market should have been looked after pretty well, and the engines are rated up to around 600 brake horsepower. The majority of issues stem from age, with perishing hoses and old turbos, but generally these have strong engines and gearboxes. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you are, please hit the like button, I would really appreciate it, and don't forget to subscribe as well if you're new. As I said, 2,000 likes and I will try and do another video on the same lines but with a different manufacturer, so let me know in the comments down below which manufacturer that should be. As I said, it's another RS4 in 5th, but this time it's the 3rd generation, which I think offers the best of both worlds in terms of classic Audi aggression mixed with modern Audi finesse. It has a 4.2 litre V8 which makes 443 brake horsepower and takes it to 60 in 4.5 seconds. It shares both its platform and powertrain with the RS5 and maintains a similar ethos to the original RS4 in that it's an aggressive compact estate that's wider and more performant than anything else in the A4 lineup. But what I think sells this car for me is that it's a pretty modern Audi, being less than 10 years old when making this video, that still has a nutty, naturally aspirated engine. The B9 that followed got a twin turbo V6 block instead, which is great, but it's highly likely we'll never see another naturally aspirated V8 RS4 in the Audi lineup, and for that reason I wanted to include it. These start at around £20,000, and for £30,000 you get a 2013 model with around 50,000 miles on the clock. The one downside is the loss of the manual box, but the auto helps make it feel all the more exotic, at least according to some owners. Gearboxes have been known to go wrong, but it's not hugely common, and thus far the V8 hasn't suffered particularly from carbon buildup like previous iterations of that block. The Audi RS5 is one of the most stunning Audis out there, picking up where the Audi Coupe left off back in the 1990s. It has a 4.2 litre V8 engine which makes 443 brake horsepower and will go from 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. Take that RS4 we just discussed, then throw it into this beautiful coupe body, and you get this. So if you don't plan on having a large family and practicality isn't a requirement, the RS5 might be the better choice. It got 2 facelifts, one in 2011 and one in 2013, with the latter also bringing in the Cabriolet example that also looks pretty good. What I think this car offers is an easy and accessible route into slightly more exotic car ownership. Given it was a £60,000 to £70,000 car when new and fully spec'd, the fact that the lowest I could find these listed for is around £16,000 is bonkers, and for £30,000 you get a 2015 facelift model with around 50,000 miles on it. Imagine cruising around in a range-topping V8 monster that won numerous design awards. Add on the similar positives to the RS4 in terms of reliability and you're onto a winner in my books. In 3rd, it's time for the 4th and final estate on this list, the Audi RS6 C6, not the first generation of the car, but arguably the one with the most ridiculous engine, a 5 litre twin turbocharged V10 that makes 571 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. It comes as both a saloon and estate, with 6,500 of the 8,000 total cars being estates. Despite this, the estate remains the more sought after car, as the RS6 Avant is one of the most popular cars on the internet and was the most Instagrammed car in 2020. In 2010, the RS6 was still Audi's most powerful car ever, and was more more powerful than both of its main competitors, the M5 and E63. If this isn't a certified future classic, I don't know what is. Despite being maybe less flashy than some newer examples, it's still already highly sought after, and that V10 block won't go amiss. These start at around the £20,000 mark, and for 30k you'll be getting a 2008 example with around 60,000 miles on the clock. Owners mainly complain about fuel economy and the 50p oil pump seal that is known to go wrong and cost a fair bit to put right despite that part being so cheap. The hydraulic suspension can leak too, so worth looking out for. Considering all the cars we've had on this list, it's interesting that the one taking second is just a little hot hatch. But it's a little hot hatch with a big performance figure, the second RS3 that Audi blessed us with. It has a 2.5 litre turbocharged inline-5 which makes 361 brake horsepower and goes from 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. Until the A45 AMG came out, this RS3 was the most powerful hot hatch in the world, and a step up from the previous generation. It was 55 kilograms lighter, more spacious, and according to owners, far more dynamic out on the roads. Delimited, it will do 174 miles per hour, which is again pretty silly in a hatchback, and it's also full of new and interesting technology to make it more capable. Some have criticised this, saying it doesn't feel manual enough, but in today's world of cars, this is pretty par for the course. This is the most expensive car on the list, starting at around £26,000, and for 30k we'll be looking at a 2015 model with around 50,000 miles on it. Some owners have complained about misfiring, which is usually just spark plugs, and others have noted jerky automatic changes at lower speeds. Also, some have questioned interior build quality, noting rattles when driving. Taking the top spot is the Audi TTRS, based on the second generation Audi TT platform. In the more powerful Plus spec, it has a 2.5 litre turbocharged inline-5 that makes 354 brake horsepower and manages 0 to 60 in just 4 seconds, pretty punchy stuff. That inline-5 block won Engine of the Year awards 7 years in a row, and for good reason. It sounds amazing, harks back to Audi's history of fast turbocharged inline-5 cars, and it has great reliability in general, as owners have gone as far as naming it bulletproof. The main issue with this car has been with gearbox synchros, not the engine. The Plus dropped in 2012 with an engine that was originally built for the RSQ3 concept car and a new top speed limiter of 174 miles per hour. Outside of that, the Plus isn't too different to the standard car, but it was around 50 grand when new, which is nuts for a TT. You of course get that aggressive body kit with the large spoiler and all the angular bits to make this a proper race car for the road. For a non-Plus example, you'll be looking at around £13,000 at the bottom end, and for 30k you'll be able to get a Plus with pretty low mileage. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as I said, I really do hope you guys had a great New Year and Christmas break. Massive thank you to the patrons as always for their support, and to you guys as well for watching. Let's smash 2022 on YouTube, and I'll see you in the next one.